an open hand, an open reach. Because you see, when we reach this way, we can touch. We can pat on the back. We can encourage. This way has no encouragement except for force. This way has inclusion. And did you know that every time in Scripture, when there's a call for compassion, Jesus reaches out this way. And if we want to be like Jesus, guess what? We need to reach out this way. Now, we live in a world with this. But Jesus says, love like this. So what does that mean for us? Well, this story from Matthew's Gospel helps us to understand it really clearly, just so you know. Jesus knew that the crowd was hungry. His disciples even knew the crowd was hungry. In one version of this story, they knew that they were hungry because they had been with Jesus for 3 days and hadn't had anything to eat. Now, I don't know about you, but last week we talked about it. 3 days without food makes us hungry. And probably some grouchy too. And so Jesus looks out at the crowd, and how did he look? It was very clearly, he looked at the crowd with compassion. And he says, we need to feed these people. Now, his disciples, I have to tell you, there was at least one accountant in the group. Well, there really was. Matthew was a tax man. He was an accountant. He knew how to count. And he knew what it cost to feed people. And he looked out at that crowd and said, we're in trouble. Jesus, send them to the towns and let them find some place that can feed them, because, quite frankly, I know what it's going to cost and we ain't got it in the treasury. And Jesus says, well, let's just, don't panic yet. Do you ever notice Jesus never panics? Even when the water's raging and he's walking across those tops of those storms, he never panics. He says, just hold on. So he says to the disciples, well, I have to laugh because they actually had a committee meeting. Jesus called it. He says, so what do we have out there in the treasury? And what do we have out there in the food section? And they come to Jesus and said, well, we found this one little boy. And he had 5 little fish, sardines, and 2 little loaves of bread, which were really rolls. And Jesus says, no problem. We got it. Got this. He takes the bread and he breaks it and gives thanks for it and he passes it out. And I love what happens. Everyone ate until they were satisfied. Everyone ate until they had had enough. Everyone ate until they didn't need any more. Thanksgiving. Right? Tonight's dinner. That meal where it never seems to stop coming out of the kitchen. And you go, oh, what a day. What a meal. How wonderful. And then something really great happens. He says, oh, by the way, there's 12 baskets. You disciples go out there and you collect the rest. Can you imagine what the disciples were thinking? What do you mean collect the rest? We have 5 loaves and 2 fish. How could there be anything left? So off they went. And those 5 loaves and 2 fish became 12 baskets of leftovers. And you all know that leftovers sometimes are the best meals. Spaghetti, I don't even eat it on the first day, it's correct. Meatloaf, chili, anything that's like that takes 2, 3, 4 days to get really good. As long as there's no green fuzz, we're okay. Right? So the power of compassion, what happens in this story? Well, I'm going to tell you 3 things to remember, and you don't have any place in your bulletin to write it down, so you just have to write it down in the margins or on your forehead, on each finger, wherever. I don't recommend writing on other people's fingers, just so you know, unless you can get away with it. The first thing that compassion does, the first power, has to do with the ones that are being fed. The power of compassion takes care of the need. They fed the hungry. They healed the broken. The ones were taken care of. You know, how many of you ever driven down the road, gotten to that 3rd biggest intersection in town, and there's a guy there. And he's got a sign. And he says, "We'll work for food," or "Need help, hungry." You all know the signs, right? And how many of you do this? Especially if you're driving. See, when you're driving, it's easier. Looking, because you don't want to make eye contact with that person. Isn't that true? How many of you? Any of you guilty of that? You don't want to make any eye contact with that person? Because if you make eye contact with that person, you might actually see them. And if you actually see them, you're going to remember now forever this sermon. And you're going to say, "What would have Jesus done?" And I know all of the arguments. Oh, he's just working the system. He's just collecting money like a toll bridge. He's just a beggar. He's just wanting to take what's mine. And all he's going to do is go buy drugs or alcohol, cigarettes, or whatever. Doesn't it hurt when I step on your toes? It should. Just a little. Because, my friends, I've done that. I do it. We all do it. We don't look him in the eye because we know that our faith might call us to actually do something about it. But when we do act, then those people are healed. Those people are fed. And I have just one word of caution for you. Which way do you want to err? On the side of grace and mercy, or on the side of being right? It's a hard place. But when we feed the hungry, when we clothe the naked, when we serve those who need help, their lives are changed. And we don't get to judge it. I've read my Bible from cover to cover, and not one place in there doesn't say, "And Pastor David gets to judge the end results." Because God didn't die and leave me in charge. Take a look at the people sitting next to you. Did God die and leave them in charge? Hope not, huh? I don't know, I'm sitting by really nice people. These guys probably treat me pretty nice, but some of you out there, and I only know that because of the way people sitting next to you are responding to that. But, so people, the power of compassion changes the people who serve lives. But let me tell you something else. The second thing that the power of compassion does is, the second life the power of compassion changes is our lives, the ones who help. I can talk about them because they're not here today. Well, maybe, or maybe they slept in. I don't know. But when you all did the Christmas thing for that family with kids, any of you feel bad about stepping up to help? When you gave Trish the money and brought the toys in, did you come going, here they are again? Doesn't work that way, does it? Trish, did anybody come in growling and frowning? No. Not one single person. Do you know why? Because as human beings, as children of God, as believers in Jesus Christ, we are. Turn and look at your neighbor and tell them, you are. You are. Go ahead. Point at him and say, you are. You are. You are. I am. We all are. With our very DNA given the gift of giving. Yeah. You see, being generous starts at the top. And God was generous. Did you read that first scripture reading? God sent His Son as a generous offering so that the people would be generous. And He wrote that letter to the poorest of the poor churches and said, you've given first and most, and we're counting on you to give again. So when we give, not only are the people we give to their lives changed, but our lives are changed. And then there's one more. There's one more change that happens, and I don't know how to explain it except in really big picture terms. When we give as individuals, and when we give as a church, and when we act with compassion and with love and with grace and mercy, when we are the church God has called us to be and live that out, then not only are the people we directly helped, and not only are we helped by that, but our very world is helped by our generosity. The whole world. Now think about that for a minute. Our whole world is changed when we act with compassion. Because when we act with compassion, the world changes. Because the people change. Now, how does that happen? Well, let me just help you understand that. Let's pretend that I'm me. It's an easy one. And I live in a world that includes these three people. Okay? That's the whole world, the four of us. Well, that's my whole world. And she has a world that has four people in it. And it includes me, but three others. And they have a world. So when I act with compassion to her, and she acts with compassion here, you see how that works. It snowballs. And the world changes. And that's how the church is called to love with compassion. just in case you missed it. 1.5 billion people live on less than $1.25 a day. Think about that for a minute. In Latin America, 1 out of every 4 people between the ages of 15 to 29 fall in the extremely poor category, which means they don't eat, just in case you don't know what that means. 23 out of every 1,000 children in Vietnam will die before their 5th birthday. .4% of Americans, so this side of the room, in proportion, will at one time, at least in their lives, live in poverty. And that's people you know. 1 in 8 people in our country still go to bed hungry every night. Undernutrition is responsible for as many as 2.6 million deaths a year of children under the age of 5. Jesus said, you give them something to eat. So let me ask you a question. Are you ready to change the world you live in? Because if you're not, then someone's going to die. Do we want to live this way or this way? I love this song. Exactly. We're going to sing it. It's really a prayer. It's really kind of a pledge for us. If you want to give your heart to Jesus, if you want to make First Christian Church your church home, we invite you to come forward as we sing the song. Let's stand together as we sing, Lord, I want to be a Christian.